What is it? Can't you let me just think it's Sam?
No, not really.
Why?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Generational Change.
Hi, all.
Jen is finishing up the blackboard now. And it looks like, Declan, are you actually Jimmy Dore? I think you might be. Well, somebody's eventually going to admit the truth.
I don't know.
So, Jen.
Yes.
We got a lot to talk about tonight, don't we?
We have a lot to talk about. Hold on, though, because this is like, this is a good thing here.
So we've got ourselves quite an art wall going up right now.
Yeah, well, It's not great, but it's pretty good.
That's a start.
It'll work.
Right.
It'll work.
So good evening to everybody. It certainly seems that
the
thing that's very interesting is that there's always something to talk about. There's never really we're never at a loss, if you will, of different topics.
No.
And so I think, where would you like to start?
Oh, yeah, Declan, you just outed yourself.
Yes.
But yeah, we don't need to see that.
No.
So, I mean, I think we should
shirts.
start. Yeah, well, it's coordinated.
Yes.
I think we should start doing and just jump into news and muse and go through the pictures on and just do it like that.
Yeah, I think that it's very important that we recognize right now that there's a lot of different things, a lot of different topics that, we certainly want to hit upon, but there's no question that a number of big things came up this week. Obviously, the biggest one, we'll get right into it, is definitely Representative Jayapal and Representative Dingell reintroducing Medicare for All, the Medicare for All Act of 2021, HR 676. And so far, it looks like it's definitely attracting a number of additional...
Can I do this?
Yes.
Okay, because you're having a problem.
Jen's going to rock on this.
Because you're really having a problem. So go ahead, keep talking about Medicare for All.
So Medicare for All was reintroduced, and it's got 112 co-sponsors already on the Democratic side. Now, of course, you need 218, so you're still over 100 short.
But
with that said, every representative in the Democratic Party in the South Florida delegation is actually on board with this now. Except for one representative. I think
one representative.
Yes, and I think you all know who that one representative is. So the fact that you have
lucky us,
Ted Deutsch, the fact that you have Frederica Wilson, Lois Frankel, and Alcee Hastings, but Debbie Wasserman Schultz is not.
She's the only congressperson in the Democratic contingency that is not on board
in South Florida.
Yeah, in our area.
And considering how much of an important piece of political real estate South Florida is supposed to be for the Democratic Party, it doesn't seem like the representative who's been here longest is necessarily putting things in the right direction.
Right.
Then again, who's surprised by that? Not me. She's a representative who, again, we don't like to talk about her.
No,
because there's really
it is
not
what it
much
is.
that
But
we
we
need
just
to
wanted to
discuss.
point out that she was the only one in the Democratic contingency in South Florida that did not sign on American
And
for All.
that, like I said, that really shouldn't surprise too many people. But just the fact that she's so determined to be this completely detestable individual, she's not even going to throw a bone. It's not like, you've got
she doesn't care.
It's not like you're a dozen votes away and you're trying to coax some additional people to come on board. This is like tokenism to the max. But maybe she really has that type of a relationship with her corporate donors that they have an understanding that, hey, you are not supporting any type of progressive legislation.
Or it could be that she just doesn't care.
I don't think she cares.
I don't either.
I think that she really is just one of those people who, for example, the fact that you challenged her for her seat, she just sees you as an inconvenience. She doesn't see you as somebody who is basically trying to improve the area, and maybe she needs to rethink her position as a representative.
No. It's so funny, and yet I find her to be such an inconvenience. It's interesting.
Well,
so
she's a blocker of
let's
progress.
move on because she's toxic energy. So let's move on. Okay.
We don't want to get stymied on Debbie.
No,
Wasserman
we're
Schultz.
gonna move on. That's what's gonna happen. We're gonna talk about this douchebag.
But the point is, Medicare for All is an absolute must. And let's be honest, at some point, the progressive members of the congressional delegation, and it's only separated by 6 votes, forcing the vote is something that ultimately needs to happen. And you do want to get people on the record. I do want to hear Debbie Wasserman Schultz on the floor of Congress say people don't deserve health care.
She won't say that. She'll never have to say
She'll
that.
dance around it.
If I had known that this was going to be so heavily centered on her, I
no,
wouldn't
it's
have
not
made,
centered. It's not centered. I'm just simply saying.
Can we move on?
Jen really hates Debbie.
I don't want to be giving. Why are we discussing that? We know that it's boring. Let's move on.
Well, with that said, there are a lot of other issues that have come up this week. Aside from the fact that, yes, we universally, no pun intended, agree that healthcare is a must, we also do have to address the fact that there are still significant issues in society when it comes to racial justice.
All right, wait. Because I want to talk about the farmers first. I want to do that thing first. I want to end with the other story.
You know, it's been discussed at length on this show, throughout this community. Jen has done a really amazing job building relationships with the people in the Black community who are the real organizers and the people that are trying to better the community at large. And one of the things that has been talked about at length is the fact that reparations is a real issue, not from the standpoint of just putting cash in people's hands, but an actual investment in communities that need them the most. So we all know, it's cliche, but most people know that when the slaves were freed, they were promised, what was the exact promise that they were
40 acres and a mule.
40 acres and a mule. And this is in 1865. So you can imagine what that would mean in today's dollars, today's compensation.
Yes.
So when you think about it,
and that didn't, by the way, it didn't end there.
No.
We still have slave labor now. It's just incarcerated individuals. So it's not like, oh, it ended then. And so the compensation should just be measured at that point. This has been an ongoing systemic problem since then. Okay. And yes, and it very much affects Black farmers. Black farmers get the short end of the stick every single time. This is a massive problem. It's been a problem. There have been lots of, embargoes essentially on working with where they won't work with and do contracts with Black farmers. There's been systemic discrimination.
And that's what I've always tried to explain to people is that when you're talking about systemic racism, it's things that you can't see.
Yeah.
That's what it is. The bigoted idiot with the Confederate flag. Yeah, you know that person is not on your side and you know where they stand. But there are a lot of people out there that will not let you know where they stand, and they're very obtuse about it. They're very what's a good thesaurus word? They're very obsequious. Would that be a good word?
Obsequious? That's very fancy. I'm trying to think. It's subtle.
Yeah. Well, people don't want to project exactly where they stand when it comes to their bigotry. They try to mask it. And remember, there's a big difference between racism and bigotry. Bigotry is...
You're going way off on a tangent. I just want to call you back in a little bit. I know, because I want you to talk about this douchebag.
For those of you who have not seen the video this week, Steven Crowder, who is a hard right content creator on YouTube, and he's built himself quite a following over the past 4 or 5 years. I never paid this guy one iota of respect and would never pay any attention to anything he was doing because I could tell what kind of a guy he is. He's a classic suburbanite buff douchebag.
I've never even known anything about this person, by the way.
Oh, listen, all you have to do, if you listen to the video, because you can't even get it now because they flagged it. But if you didn't have the opportunity to listen to this guy's rant against Black farmers,
I saw clips of it on one of the
on Vosh.
I think, was it Vosh or it was Vosh.
And so ultimately what ended up happening was he went into a completely bigoted rant against Black farmers.
Yeah.
And he did it in a way that had the most racist tropes that you could find.
All that was missing was blackface.
That's it.
That's all that missing was
or white hood. He could have put the white hood on it at the rate he was going at. It was really bad. But like Vosh said, I appreciate the fact that he's not holding anything back. That he is just letting it fly. He's letting you know.
He's a bigot, and here it is.
And so he's doing the whole "we didn't do nothing" and shit like that. I'm like, oh my God, it's just so transparent how much you don't like people of color.
But the reason this is an issue, though, why this is current, is because of the Black Farmers Association. It's not an associate, but their organization made a comment or came out talking about the Joe Biden's appointment for the Department of Agriculture. and that this is somebody who goes back a couple administrations and wasn't always so inclusive to the Black farmers.
Correct.
And so they were expressing concern. And I can say that in the state of Florida, and especially regarding legalization of cannabis and how the growers are treated, they have crafted rules that really do tend to work out against Black growers. And what they do is they use different classifications for what's a farmer and what's a grower and different things. And that's how they can sort of block them out of the market. So yeah, it is a problem. And so this douchebag was mocking that.
And he not only mocked it, he did it in a way that, like I said, it hit every single horrific stereotype, whether it was about growing a Hennessy Cavassier tree.
Yeah, it was just foul.
Then just talking about, again, I'm trying to, because like I said, they flagged it, so it's not up there anymore. But the way that he did it, it was mask off all the way. There was nothing to hide. No. It was one of those, I hate Black people and I want everyone to know that I do. And so anyone who would defend somebody like this, I don't get it. I don't understand what the appeal is of this guy.
Because people need to have an other, they need to have an enemy, they need somebody to kick down. That's just what we do. And that's what people here do. This is all the same thing, which is a good segue into what's going on, the Asian situation.
And so everybody, of course, likes to project that there isn't a really big issue going on right now with bigotry across a lot of different lines. And there is anti-Asian bigotry going on in society. And yes, there is anti-Asian bigotry being perpetrated by the Black community. It does happen. But let's not forget that we're also living in a country right now where we did have a president that was calling it Kung Flu and the China virus.
The China virus.
So when you start doing things like that, eventually you're going to rile up a lot of people. And they're going to look at this and say, well, you know, maybe it is their fault. How is it that people who are born and raised in the United States are responsible for what took place on the other side of the globe? Because you have to find an enemy.
Well, look, we did it.
Somebody to hit.
And I want to be very clear that while this most recent bout of anti-Asian hate is definitely stirred up by Trump and that type of mindset, we have a very, very long history of Asian hate in this country. So people need to be familiar with that. And so I went ahead and
maybe the worst part of, you know, FDR's presidency.
It goes back even further. Like, seriously.
How about the building of the railroads in the United States?
It's been bad. It's been really bad.
Right.
And so I'm going to you can do it. I made a banner. You can do it. Put up a banner. I made a banner. This is a documentary that I watched on YouTube a long time ago. I highly recommend this. It was really just very basic. But it really shows it from the perspective of the immigrants and their descendants. And I thought it was really well done. Yeah. But in any event, we have an entire history of othering the Chinese. There have been a lot of anti-Chinese laws, anti-Mongolian laws. This is not new. However, whether or not this guy this went on the shooting spree, whether or not it was based on hate of Asians or not, it's a good opportunity to look at that. We have been having a serious violence against Asians problem in the past couple of years, escalating since coronavirus and this Trumpism.
Yeah.
And it's a problem. So I would, and also, of course, I'll plug Bo, because Bo did
Bo of the Fifth Column.
Bo of the Fifth Column. He did a really good sort of brief history synopsis of what this documentary is, just sort of giving it, we've been abusing the Chinese people for as long as they've been on this continent. So there's that.
It's always easier to punch down, but you know, you came up with an interesting term today that I've never heard before, punching sideways.
Yeah, well, that's the left.
Explain how that comes into play.
Okay, but before I do, I just want to be very clear that when I'm saying Chinese, I'm speaking Asian people. So this affects Vietnamese people, Korean people, anybody who looks East Asian that would be targeted as affiliated as such. So I know there's a huge difference.
Yes.
But the kind of people that go shoot up massage parlors probably don't know the difference. So that's what I'm saying. So
there's also something to be said, which I don't think it's talked about enough, about the warping of the mind that technology has done. I see it every day. I'm not going to allude too much into it, but it's very easy to get sucked into a world where it's like Instagram. Everybody wants to look pretty, or everyone wants to feel important, and they constantly need reformation by getting likes and comments and things like that. And it really turns you into this very emotionally unhinged person in many respects, because it's like a dopamine. You got to have it. You got to do it. If I don't put out a good post, well, no one's liking it. And it's like, that's not the end of the world. But there are a lot of people, perhaps like this guy, who ended up doing what he did at the Atlanta massage parlor. And it could be for a myriad of reasons.
Yes.
But if you took one look at Myriad, I didn't say it right. So when you look at him, what's your initial reaction? Your reaction is, yeah, this guy definitely looks like he has trouble with women.
Look, the pictures of the white dudes that are always doing this kind of stuff look exactly like you would think they would look.
Yeah.
They look like antisocial personalities. They look like people that have serious issues, possibly inbreeding, definitely some sort of like mental, capacity problem or something. And this is, that's the trend. Those are the dangerous people.
Yes. And they're also the people that surprisingly end up on the FBI's watch list, and yet they never seem to get them before they commit these serious acts of violence.
No.
I always find that so interesting.
No, they're too busy. They're too busy using all of their resources to come down on black protesters. They don't have time. So, are we going to do, I want to talk a little bit about Betty before she comes on. So yes. I don't know, we do need to do our bootlicker. Do you want to do that? Okay. So you want to do that before she comes on?
I think we've got enough time. Because
okay.
It's a good
so then
segue,
do that.
There isn't too much of a, I would say right now.
Speaking of Atlanta.
Yeah. Atlanta is it's again, everyone thinks that the South is changing. And I would say, yeah, to a degree it is changing, but let's not forget that Atlanta is now, New York South, basically. It's become this, yes?
Yeah, stop that.
Yep.
And then you need to share.
That's right. So it's New York has essentially shifted into this particular branch of the South. And so Atlanta has changed significantly, but what it hasn't changed is a lot of the people that are already there. And so, of course, our bootlicker of the week, who else could it possibly be? But Jay Baker, I believe he's the
he's a spokesperson.
Yeah, or he's the second sheriff, or he's like assistant sheriff, whatever his specific title is.
Yeah, I don't know.
But what was so interesting about this guy is the fact that he went on TV and he thought that instinctively the thing to talk about was the fact that this mass murderer was having a bad day. He's having a bad day.
He's having a bad day.
What kind of a day did the 8 people he slaughtered have?
He was having a bad day. It was rough.
Yeah. I mean, it's almost like...
You know who had a bad day? George Floyd had a really bad day.
Oh, yes. Tamir Rice had a really bad day.
Yeah. A lot of people have bad days.
Breonna Taylor had a really bad day.
I have been watching Jury Selection. It continues.
I was actually watching a little bit of that.
It is sort of like watching paint dry, and they had to call people back in because apparently a story was released last week about the civil settlement, and they had to call in the jurors that they had already sat to make sure that they weren't biased by the news of the civil settlement. And so that was where I left off. But yeah, it's really it's slow going. And they're still ultimately seeking a change of venue. That's what they're trying to get. They don't think they're using this to try to show that they are not going to be able to get a fair trial in that venue.
And
although I don't see how it'll be different anywhere else.
No, and I definitely agree. I think that, but again, you have video footage of the guy literally putting his knee on his neck.
It's, you know what though? I don't want to say that makes it a slam dunk because it doesn't.
No, it doesn't. Because they can always use the excuse that this guy was acting erratically. Every time I attempted to lift my knee, he started to squirm and this and that. It's like they'll always come up with some type of a crazy defense.
Oh, they're wanting to introduce information about an arrest of his from 2019 that would really not be admissible in this, except they're saying that they're using it to show habit. Now, the thing is, the problem about showing habit is it can't just be one other time. Like, they're really pushing it. And they're saying it has to do with that he popped in these pills to avoid getting busted with them. And then that caused him to have increased heart rate and blood pressure and all this stuff. And my thing is this: I wouldn't care if all of that were true. I don't care if he was popping pills and increasing blood pressure and doing all those things. And if they left him in the back of the car and he had a heart attack on his way to the station from what he was doing, then the autopsy would show that and everything would be fine. What Chauvin did is he took that completely off the table as far as I'm concerned. It doesn't matter what that was because he died because of somebody suffocating him by kneeling on his neck.
Again,
that's how he died.
What we have is lack of accountability for law enforcement. Yeah. And when somebody like Sheriff Baker goes on TV and says this guy was having a bad day, you're only reaffirming the fact that there are people who simply do not trust law enforcement and think that there is a systemic problem, which it has. And it's only getting worse because the lack of reform is just not happening. Even in the height of all the things that are going on right now, they still insist on treating this as, it's just another day at the office and nothing's ever going to happen to our boys in blue. And that's a really big problem. But as we've discussed at length, I do think that if we were able to end qualified immunity, where you could literally hit the police department in the wallet, that in itself would change everything. Because then they would have to be thinking about, well, maybe this might actually hurt my fellow officers and I can't do this because it's not going to be good for us. Think about this. Yes, George Floyd's family was able to get a significant, what would you call it? Severance pay?
$27 million.
$27 million. But it's the Minneapolis taxpayers that are footing the bill. Right. Why isn't the Minneapolis Police Department paying for this?
Yeah.
That's the problem. If you end qualified immunity, the taxpayers would not be paying for this. And this is what needs to be talked about at length. This is the topic. And I believe so there you go. Qualified immunity needs to be addressed because this is what will end this crap. Right. This is what will end it. Everyone is looking for the magic wand, if you will. This is it. This is what will change it. Anything in our country. You want to change things? Hit them in their wallets. It'll change immediately.
But this to me, of course, highlights the obvious difference in how we treat different types of perpetrators in this country.
Of course.
And it's just so blatant. It's so blatant. And how telling is it that simultaneously as the George Floyd trial is started,
right,
that this guy, after killing 8 people, gets arrested and is perfectly fine and nicely cuffed and put in the car, however that is. I mean, his arrest photo, he didn't even look like they touched him. So it's really very a stark difference.
And I got to tell you, I really do think that there's a lot of people in positions of political power who really like the divide and conquer strategy. And they think that the more the police look like they're favoring Caucasians, easier it is to divide left and right. In a lot of ways, I think they see that as a means to an end.
It's just
because if we don't have a means to an end, we're never going to change that. And people are saying that, we have to retrain and we have to go through bias training and all of that. That is not going to solve your problem. The only thing that powerful infrastructures understand in this country is their bottom line. If you hit their bottom line, it will change, and it will change like that. No one wants to lose any money, no matter how little it may seem. Why do you think somebody like Jeff Bezos goes to unbelievable lengths to not let the Bessemer, Alabama warehouse workers unionize?
But you know what's interesting? How much they're protecting the police pensions, but yet they have no problem going after the firefighter pensions. Mm-hmm. So, because I think that the pensions should be that's where this payment should come out of. Let them protect their own money.
That's ending qualified.
No, I know, but it's just interesting. So that in the meantime, they're trying to take away our firefighters.
And the truth is,
pensions, which we still need to make. That guy needs to be brought to attention on Monday. And again,
we are very friendly with law enforcement, and most people in law enforcement are good people.
I don't know why you say we're friendly with law enforcement. I don't know.
But what I'm saying, we
I don't have a problem.
We have no problem.
No.
But the crux of the issue here is that it's a very entrenched culture of silence. Right. And when that happens, you're never going to change it unless there's a reason for the collective of law enforcement to say this has to change.
Yeah.
The second you have and everyone knows who the rogue officers are, everyone knows who the bigots are.
But the problem is the system is facilitating that,
Correct.
as does the military industrial complex, because when all you have is hammers, all you see are nails. And they're so over militarized, and what you're getting is guys coming in wanting to play commando cop.
Correct.
That's the type of personality that's going into law enforcement. And I say this all the time: law enforcement needs to be there to solve crimes that happened, not to be patrolling and policing communities and looking for problems. That's not what we need. What we need are people solving untested rape kits and going
Correct.
through all that stuff. And that the kind of person that would go into law enforcement, if the purview was much more that than playing commando, you're going to slowly see a shift in the kind of people that go into law enforcement. So, I mean,
I am still of the mind that if you get them thinking about their bottom line,
yes,
they will think twice about doing stupid stuff.
That's true. But I think that what I'm talking about is a long-term solution in terms of the type of people that even go into law enforcement.
I do think that that is true. And I do think that there is something to be said for going into a career where, you know, it's basically full immunity. Like they can get away with whatever they want to get away with. And let's face it, a lot of guys do go into law enforcement because they have an axe to grind. And when you have an axe to grind, that's a big problem.
Generally, I have found in my experience, cops are usually either somebody that was bullied or someone that was a bully. And it's a very interesting sort of mindset. It's a very interesting sort of mindset. And there's a range. The ego is generally fairly large, and there's a range of what you're doing with that. Are you really protecting and serving, or are you, cops and robbers? I don't know. I mean, it really depends, but the system allows them to do that.
I definitely agree. And with that said, we're going to segue into our guest who will be coming on. And Jen does have a intro that you would like to share.
I would just like to, can you figure out what, no, not this part. I'm just going to put up my,
graphic.
No, this one. Yeah. But I want you to find so that we can put up the link to her TED Talk.
Sure.
Okay. So a couple of months ago, oh God, when was her TED Talk? It was already a few months ago. I want to say, it might have even been like January. I'm not sure, but that's not the original one though. I don't think. Okay. No, because it was longer ago than that. That's it. So yeah, it was that. She's wearing a flowery skirt, but I came across this TED Talk and I just really liked it and it spoke to me, and we're gonna put it up, and here she is. So
we'll play it after.
Well, what we're gonna do, we're gonna put the link to the TED Talk so that everyone can go see it. And I'm not gonna ask Betty to basically do her TED Talk because that's kind of not the point of this. But it was I found it very profound. In the parallel that I saw from what she was telling was her story, a personal story about canceling somebody and what that felt like and what that was. And I see how that is like societal. And I see that as like her story was this microcosm of the bigger problem that we have as a society. And I found that very profound. And then, of course, I had to do further research. And it turns out Ms. Hart's also a theater artist person. So now that's a whole other.
In a union, too.
And in a union, mind you. So it's like now there's just like, now I'm just, I'm giddy because now it's like, because I didn't know. She could have just been, I saw the TED Talk. She could have been, I don't know. All sorts of people do TED Talks. So I was really excited to know. Anne lives in Colorado, I believe, which I went to Boulder. So that's very exciting for me. So yeah, get rid of that one.
And welcome.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. How are y'all?
Good.
Warm.
Yeah.
You guys are cold.
How is Colorado these days?
Well, it's warmer than it was this weekend when we had the fourth worst snowstorm in the history of Colorado.
Wow.
Yeah, no climate change problems there. That's for sure.
Wow.
None. It just happens like that.
None whatsoever. So you heard me just talking about your talk, and I know that you've obviously gotten a lot of comments and support and stuff from it because I'm not the only person that thought it was awesome. But as soon as I saw that, I'm like, oh, I really want to talk to her. I need to talk to her. And the way you told your story, and I don't know how to, like, if you could just tell a little bit of your story, like what inspired you to do the talk? And like, what message is it? Like, what's the key message? Because obviously we want people to go watch the TED Talk because that's even cooler. But just like a synopsis and how you got, like, what was your inspiration to do the talk?
Okay, well, the inspiration was starting in the fall of 2016. People who I like, admire, and respect began to say things like, so-and-so is going to be uninvited to Thanksgiving. Grandpa can't come. My cousin can't come. So-and-so can't come. And when I'd ask why, they said because of political ideology. And that disturbed me because these were people who they were in relationship for decades, right? When it comes to your grandparents, they've known you your whole life. And suddenly there was something greater than that. And so that began to just concern me. And I began to talk to people about how I disagreed with that. And then years later, I was asked just at the right time, did I have an idea worth sharing? And to be very honest, I didn't think anyone would be interested. And I didn't plan on doing it. They literally pursued me and asked me. And when I talked about the fact that I believed compassion could actually be stronger and it could be used to help overcome this, the person immediately said, oh my God, you want to use compassion to cancel culture? And I went, yeah, that's it. Yeah. And that kind of began the journey of crafting the talk from there.
It was really amazing. I mean, we all talk about what is cancel culture. And I think that the term has transitioned over the past, like, say 10 years or so. As I think of it, it was something started out from conservatives to not allow more liberals to talk on college campuses. You would get it in the academics, like certain people that believe certain things, they wouldn't be invited. They wouldn't be like in a broader scale. And now to me, it's like we live in this toxic world where anybody who is perceived as doing anything that's a microaggression or anything, that's it, we're done, they're canceled, they're out. And it's very unproductive. And it really keeps everybody divided on so many issues instead of coming together on issues that we agree on. And so I was wondering, like, when you were working on this, were you thinking of it, obviously not just from your family? I mean, that was such a, microcosm of this, but like, were you thinking about the broader picture?
I was, and that's why I definitely brought in Ruth Bader Ginsburg to give a hint that this had more larger implications. But I chose to address it on the personal level because I think that's where real change happens. If anyone is willing to listen to someone who's different and has a very different point of view and is willing to say, because you're a human being and you're in relationship with me, whether that be a colleague at work or a neighbor or a family member or a close friend, I'm willing to extend this to you because the sum of who you are is greater than any of the individual thoughts that you might have. And I thought if I could get someone to move the needle when it comes to someone they've already committed to loving, then it's a lot easier to get people to move the needle with politicians, celebrities, and people that we don't really know, but we attach ourselves to anyway.
Yeah, I have that experience regularly in the political side of things. I tend to ally with anybody who is going to be on my team for whatever the issue. So when we were talking about, protesting drilling in the Everglades, I found friends and common ground with the Republican Club that they believe in Everglades restoration. And so I made a friend, and that's somebody we don't agree with on a lot of things, but we do agree on, we can work together. And the kind of like negative pushback I have gotten from the Democrats, from the centrist people that I affiliate with, how can I go to those meetings and how can I hang out with them? And it's really very, it's looked down upon. It's like we're not supposed to talk to the other side.
Yeah, it's kind of scary because when you think about it, if someone doesn't love your favorite television show or doesn't vibe with your favorite color or type of music, then it's not a big deal, right? You can still accept who they are. But somehow in the past few years, we've moved into this, I'm going to call it crazy, though that's not the right word, but it's a little troubling that we can't accept differences. Your favorite food may be whatever it is. That has nothing to do with my life. Why should I abandon you as a friend or bring you on as a friend because of something minor like that?
And I think that this also comes into play, not just with we don't see things the same, but with what are these called, these microaggressions and things that happen and that somebody gets sort of labeled and stamped for eternity. And they're not even given an opportunity to learn, grow, get forgiveness, even when they ask for it. And just like, I've had that down here. I've had that experience where just being labeled and not even, and trying to like get, talk and figure things out, and just having people then lie about me and make up stuff and then just sort of cancel me. And so I've had that experience, and it's really very counterproductive to getting anything done when you're talking about people that are supposedly on your team, and yet now you have to work around them because they're ignoring you. Like it's very toxic. And I don't think that people understand it happens at a very personal level. It happened to me here. Something went down. Wasn't a great moment for me. In the moment, immediately recognized it, apologized profusely, felt horrible, wasn't even thinking what I was doing. Wrote a letter, apologized profusely to multiple people in writing and in person multiple times over the course of a couple of weeks. Was told everything's fine, it's all good, we get you. And I really there was no malintent, none whatsoever. It was just me being 50 and a little out of touch. So I said, okay, everything's fine. And then a few months later, when I say I'm running for Congress, then this person puts out this information about me, publicly shaming me for something that I had apologized profusely for, meant no bad, there was no malintent at all. It was just a complete foot and mouth thing, and was just shamed. And now there's this entire group of people that just bought into that lie, and they just call me out as racist. I'm racist. I'm racist. And it's been 2 years now. It's been about 2 years, and these people they don't know anything else about me but this one story that someone told them from one incident one night. And it's just, this is ridiculous. And and it's constant. So anytime I post, these same girls jump on, hating. And there is no forgiveness. There is no, let's discuss it. And in fact, then lied and said that I wasn't willing to talk about it. I started the minute it happened, and so then they lied about me and said I didn't want to discuss it. So this is the kind of nonsense. So I've been canceled.
What was the exact incident? What was said that they?
Okay, so this is thing. Do you mind if I tell you this, because this is really my canceling experience? So I was at a function for the Black they call themselves the Black Progressive, but they're not progressives. I will tell you that they're not progressive.
No, it's a Kamala Harris.
It is. It's very centrist, but whatever. So I was at a function, and we were outside, and there were people hanging out and partying, and I was just hanging out and having fun. And I was there with friends. I was having a good time, and somebody dropped a glass. This guy dropped a glass outside, and I said something like, "Oh my God, don't get too crazy. Somebody's gonna call the cops on us." But I was going into my college mindset of what it was like at a party or a rave when something gets out of control. And I was totally playing because he broke the glass. And I'm the most chill person. I couldn't care less. And I ran up to him immediately and I said, "Oh my God, that's not what I meant. I'm so sorry. I wasn't being threatening. I just felt collectively it's a crazy party getting crazy." And this was the incident that led to this chain of events of them saying that they say I'm Karen. The story has translated into I threatened to call the police on him. So you know how the telephone game, it changes over time. Now the story is I threatened to call the police on him. And this is the narrative that a lot of people have believed about me. And it's very, I know flat out who knows the truth is this woman who started talking this about me, and she flat out knows the truth. She knew from that moment in my eyes where I was like, oh my God, that's not what I meant. And, and again, in writing and multiple times thereafter. So I don't know if you have can you have some sympathy for my story?
Well, I just have empathy that you had to go through this period. I think what's sad is that you made a mistake, you recognized you made a mistake, you tried to rectify it, you thought it was done, and then only because you sought public office, this returned, and there's no willingness to actually engage in what actually happened. That's incredibly sad. And I can't imagine, because certainly a term like racist or sexist or any of the ist, right? Once branded, it becomes kind of, the albatross around your neck, and you literally can't remove it. And that's awful. I mean, that's really horrible. And what I would say, and I think, that's what you're doing, is that you're continuing in the face of it, right? Because that's all you can do, is hope that the sum of who you are eventually is seen, and that those who refuse are always going to be there, right? There's always going to be that contingency that's not for you, no matter what you do. And it's hard. I think you have to keep moving forward and not let it weigh you down, especially when you know what's true and you actually did everything you could to fix the situation when it went wrong.
Yeah, I mean, if this were just personal, right? If this were just personal, I couldn't care less what people think about me. I really don't. I've got pretty thick skin. I really don't care. What bothers me is that it impedes progress, because these are people that are politically active. And so we run in similar circles. Like, we'd be so much more effective and productive without this nonsense. So that's the real reason it bothers me. It isn't, oh, my feelings are, I know who I am. Like, I have that's not an issue for me. But that's why.
Betty, I have to say your TED Talk was phenomenal, and it was the right length, because you know how a lot of times people don't want to, I can't do 30 minutes, but it's like, it's 11 minutes long. All right, that's reasonable. So it's just the way that you were, it was such a well-flowed conversation, but just explaining, how much your father meant to you and how much it hurt that you had that falling out, and then eventually we all know what Alzheimer's does. And so the question that I have for you, which I think is a big one, because we know what a toxic political environment we're living in today, if you could talk about how cancel culture basically is being used as a political football on both sides. This is not limited to one particular area, but I do think that cancel culture, at its core, I do think that there are people who truly believe that there are, really horrific people out there. Like, if you're aware of what a right-wing content creator, Steven Crowder, did this week, disparaging black farmers in the most blatantly bigoted way possible. That's the type of person who doesn't have a leg to stand on and never should. But I also believe that there are a lot of people who do take things out of context deliberately, and they do it because they see it as a means of stepping on somebody's shoulders to get to the next rung on the ladder.
Yeah.
And I would love to hear your perspective as far as that is concerned.
Well, one, I'm not in politics, so certainly I'm not a part of that world. But what I would say is that the people who use cancel culture to advance another agenda are simply using another power tactic. It's no different than any number of other power tactics, but it's about power. It's not about truth. It's not about honor. It's not about integrity. It's about power, because the reality is there's no human being alive who hasn't made a mistake at some point. If you're 10 years old and over, I'm going to suggest that you've made a mistake. And so to brand someone forever because of one item that they've done is problematic to me, first of all, because it implies that we don't have a chance for redemption. We don't have a chance to grow. We don't have a chance to change, even though we know that change is perpetual. You literally can't stay the same even if you want to. Your body is renewed. Your skin cells change. So I think politics has become increasingly ugly because it's all about money and power, and it isn't, unfortunately, what it should be about: serving the people and representing the entire constituency as opposed to only a segment.
Yeah, I mean, that's our mission on the show, is we say it's transforming politics into service. I believe that those are our employees, and that they're extremely insubordinate, and that there's no other business where your employees would make more money, have better health benefits than you, give themselves a raise, and we would all just sit there and pat them on the back. I mean, I can't think of any other business where that works. But the thing is, it isn't just when you put the little banner up and it says canceling cancel culture. I think that the key issue is that it's with compassion,
right? Okay.
Because the idea is I find it's so toxic within us to carry that and to carry that sort of disdain for somebody. It's compassion is the only way to make that feel any better. Like the only way to do that is through compassion. And I think that's the key thing. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about, so now that you've done this, and obviously this is kind of blown up. So, I mean, when I put who you were, I didn't put motivational speaker. I put artist, activist, and speaker. But then you're very diverse. So talk a little bit about what you really do, because I also find that really cool as well.
I have 3 different hats, so to speak. So I'm a professional actor who is indeed a part of Actors Equity Association, the union for professional actors. I am a professional director. These are in the world of plays primarily, though occasionally I'll dabble in, doing some commercials or industrials. And then I'm also a facilitator, and I work for a healthcare organization's arts organization, and I have the great opportunity to help create conversations so that people can better their health. And so I talk about things like laughter is wellness, and I talk about things like care equity. And what's fascinating is a lot of what the country wants to talk about because of 2020, I've been talking about for a long time. How bias affects our health outcomes, how bias affects our day-to-day lives, how diversity matters, how culture is more and bigger than people. I literally have white people who will say, I don't have culture because I'm white. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Everyone has culture. Everyone. So those are the things I do. Yeah. And then having conversations about race and discrimination and the arts, just any kind of conversation that's interesting. And usually the ones that other people find difficult are kind of the things that I love to do.
I love that. And I love that you use your art to have difficult conversations. I think it's the best way to possibly engage people. And I think that's so brilliant. Like, I can't tell you how many ways I feel like you and I could be friends. Like the more I thought about it, like, oh, and she's union. And I just, the whole thing. And so what was the most, you just recently did something, that hasn't been finished yet, that you're directing. So do you want to talk about what you're working on?
Oh, sure. And it's interesting the way you say it. So I'll talk about the last thing I did, which can still be streamed, and then the thing I'm currently working on. So the last thing I did was I had the great privilege of directing a virtual drama called To the Moon, written by playwright Beth Kander for Creed Repertory Theater. And it's a domestic violence awareness piece. And it's really powerful. It was culled from taking interviews and live interviews from survivors. And then Beth Kander put this into this play. And so Creed Repertory Theater brought me on to direct, and I got to direct amazing women from all over the country and London. And it is streaming now through April 11th, and it's free. It's all part of awareness. So Creed, CREEDE rep.org, creedrep.org, and the place called To the Moon.
Rep.org.
Yeah. Creed, Colorado is a mountain town. Which is really beautiful.
Okay. And that's really cool.
Thank you. And then I'm currently working on, I'm near the completion of completing a dramatic film that is devised by students at University of Northern Colorado, where they are telling the story of 2020 from their lens as college students. And it's called 2020
That's
Speaks.
Really cool.
And so they write the works, the plays, the scenes, the vignettes, and then they also choose music from the musical theater canon, and then we film it. And then my job with the editor is to put it all together to tell a cohesive story. And it's been really powerful to hear these amazing young people speak about the really tragic experience of 2020.
Yeah. I love that. And I love that you're passing this on to new people. Like this whole concept, it bothers me that arts have gone so far out of our schools. And obviously in Florida, we're definitely at the bottom of the barrel in terms of that. But like art and music and the things that I think are so important and critical have been trashed. I mean, like they're just trashed. And so when I hear of things like that, it makes me really happy because it's just, we need more of it.
I think that was one of the things, particularly in Trump's presidency, that got thrown to the side. Art in all of its forms is very important for developing a positive culture. Acting is not something that I've dabbled in personally to any great degree, but I do know that performing on stage takes a lot of courage, and it takes a lot of strength. And I think it's the form of acting that is not only the hardest, but it should be the most respected. At least it usually tends to be in New York, where I'm from, the Northeast. And so I'm curious what your experience has been like. Is there a preference between performing on stage versus performing on camera?
Yes, I definitely prefer performing on stage. I really appreciate the fact that it's a synergetic experience between the audience and I. The audience impacts, affects, alters the performance. The words that you say don't change, but there is something that happens when you're in a room with people and you can't help but feel it. And it changes things. The electricity is really powerful. So I love live theater for that. On-camera work is a different animal altogether, and there's beauty and power and poignance in that, but it doesn't fulfill me in the same way that a live experience does.
Which is why you're so good at giving a TED Talk. No, it's true. I mean, look, not everybody is cut out to be a public speaker. They're just not. I mean, you can get over being scared of it and get to where you can do it, but that doesn't mean that you thrive at it.
Well, you know what? It's actually interesting you say that, because, Betty, as you know, there's a lot of interesting personalities that end up going into acting. I think Bob De Niro is a great example of that, from the standpoint of he can act especially in his heyday, could act any type of role that you could think of. But when you get him on camera as Bob De Niro, he basically is a total introvert and not somebody that you would think would want to get in front of a crowd of people and start speaking. But when the lights are on, for some reason, it just clicks and they just know exactly how to do it. Do you cross, a lot of different actors that basically have, more of an introverted personality in their personal life, but once they're in front of the stage, it's like, it's time to rock and roll. It's showtime. I can do this.
Yes, I'm gonna answer both things, because Jen brought up something as well. Fun fact, I wasn't doing any acting when I did my TED Talk, and here's a really interesting thing that kind of surprises people. I did not memorize my TED Talk. Cherry Creek, which is amazing, their TEDx, they have a different philosophy. They genuinely want it to be a conversation. And when you have a conversation with people, you don't memorize what you're going to say. You allow the best ideas to hit you right then. So that was actually frightening, because memorizing makes sense. I know how to do that. I know how to score it and deliver it. But to trust the process and allow brand new ideas to hit me for the very first time in front of other people who are watching, and to not have a safety net, is actually really challenging. And that's what I did with that TED Talk. And everyone who saw me practice it they're like, oh, it kept changing. Because it did. Every single day, new ideas hit me. So that's on the TED Talk end. So acting didn't necessarily help me there. On the acting front, I have tons of friends who are introverts. And absolutely, being a gifted performer is a skill. And it doesn't have anything to do with talking publicly. And so most of my acting friends would never want to moderate a conversation. They're always grateful if I lead the talk back. They can answer a question or two about their character. But even after that, they're like, I took too long, or I didn't get to the point, or I meandered. It's a real skill, I think, to be able to not just speak publicly, but to be able to kind of look ahead so that you know where you're going. I think that's the key in public speaking. You kind of have to know where you're going so you can get there the way you want. Otherwise, you're kind of meandering and you don't know how to get there.
Yeah.
One of the big things that happened that was a huge story during the effects of COVID, especially last year, was what happened with the union members of SAG-AFTRA and their healthcare. They basically were left out in the cold. And so, union power is nowhere near where it used to be, and obviously nowhere near where it needs to be. So I'm curious what your personal experience has been like being union versus non-union. And if we can talk a very small part of politics, the importance of what universal healthcare, Medicare for all single-payer system would mean to actors in light of everything that has gone on in terms of, just the last year alone.
Woo, that's a lot. I would say certainly 2020 and 2021 continues to be a devastating time for professional actors. The inability for us to gather in groups, in large groups, affects everyone who performs. The unions have been very strict in terms of COVID protocols, which has made a lot of theaters unable to hire equity actors, which has been tremendously awful for many, many friends and colleagues. If I didn't have a day job, I don't know how I would have survived this time. And so I'm really grateful for that. And I feel deeply for all of my compatriots who only had the opportunity to perform and literally lost everything over the course of a year. I think having the access to healthcare and solid healthcare, right? I don't really want just a system that checks the block saying people can get healthcare. I want everyone to get excellent healthcare. I want everyone to be able to take care of any mental or physical need the way they should. The fact that we as a country don't have nearly enough psychiatrists, psychologists, therapists that are licensed is a crime because mental health is just as important as our physical health, and yet it's not taught. We don't go around talking about it so that we can normalize that the mind has its own needs, just like the body does. So I think there's so much work to be done in terms of healthcare. And I really wish and hope that I will live to see a day that anyone in this country can get healthcare when they need it affordably.
Yeah.
Right.
We're working on it. We're working on it,
Well, Colorado tried. You had Colorado Care. I believe that there is some type of a clause in the state charter in Colorado that basically.
I lived there for 4 years in Boulder in college, partying my ass off. You think I could possibly remember what the laws are like there? I know they have legal weed. That's about it, right?
Yeah, I know, but I know that they're trying. They're definitely trying, and I do think that the consensus. I think we're on our way. I really do. I think that universal health care will help significantly for the working class as much as anybody. I mean, obviously, it goes without saying that our healthcare system in this country is a racket. And pretty much everyone is aware of that now. It's the question of whether they have the will and the courage to really make that change, because it would be the most significant change of our lifetime, no question about it. But I do think that people who work in the line of work like acting, where nothing is guaranteed, constantly having to audition and really, pay your dues as well. That's a very big, like you said, there's a lot of mental anguish that goes into being a performer. It really is. And, some people handle rejection one way, some people handle it another way. But the truth is, universal health care would include mental health.
Yeah, it's a big thing.
That does that and stress never gets talked about enough in our society, and just how I dealt with economic stress, financial stress for about 6 months to a year, and knowing what that was like and how stressed out I was, and once it was over, what a burden that had been lifted off of my shoulders. I can't even imagine how difficult it is, especially being in certain lines of work that just completely shut down and you have no idea where it's going to head. And I think that's a good segue, because we actually had a very awesome comedian on our show recently, Judah Friedlander. And one of the things that he talked about was the ability to do essentially live stream comedy shows. So I'm curious if there's anything related to some type of live streaming performance. Is that something that has taken shape in any capacity for you guys?
Absolutely. Live streaming and the ability to video performances has changed the game. The start of the year, started strong, and then everything shut down. And then there was a huge pause in the arts. And then collectively across the country and the world, people discovered you could still bring entertainment to people virtually. And so live concerts are live streamed, plays are live streamed. And then you also have just going ahead and filming it live, but then editing it so you can kind of get rid of any errors. And it's changed the game. And I think what it's really done is it's added a level of accessibility that I hope we never, ever go back from. Because now, regardless of where you live, if you have access to the internet, you can connect with the arts from around the world. And I think that's beautiful. And I hope that we'll always have that moving forward because it changes the game. To be able to watch a play that's happening in France right now can completely expose someone in a different way than we ever did. Or if you're snowed in, like we had this snowstorm on Sunday, and you're stuck and you literally can't get out of your home, to be able to have the art still come in and allow your heart to be expanded is beautiful. So yeah, I love the fact that that's been one of the gifts of the great pause and the pandemic that I hope we'll be able to use forward, no matter what.
Yeah. And I, as much as I like virtual reading, the one thing that I do remember and love very much that was Denver was the Tattered Cover Bookstore. And is that still there? Like, is that still like a thing?
It's under new owners. And it is still here, still going strong, and they've been doing work throughout the pandemic. So yeah, it's here to stay.
Okay. Good. I'm so glad. Like, people don't understand this bookstore is like an institution. Like, it looks like an antique library, and it's just beautiful and multi-storied, and just, it's the most amazing bookstore ever that I've ever been in. And so that's good to hear. I'm glad, because definitely need more independent those.
Yes. You should come. Clearly you miss us.
I do. Let me tell you, look, I'm a mountain girl stuck in a beach town. You know, I moved from here to Boulder. I was there from 88 to 92. And I you know, look, I'm a mountain person for sure.
She's hooked on Asheville, North Carolina.
Yeah, that's where I would probably
I would definitely think that you know, northern Colorado is definitely.
Oh, I like all of Colorado.
Yeah, but especially there's so many great places in this. It's a great state. It is. It's the most desirable place to live that's not on the coastline.
So we can wrap with this, because I want you to like what was the key message, because now there's probably people on that weren't on in the beginning, and sort of like do like a wrap up, and then we'll put the TED Talk link back up.
I also have a very important question to ask, Betty.
Oh, we do?
Yes.
What's our question?
What does generational change mean to you?
Ooh, what a great question. Generational change means breaking the past so that the future is forever better.
That's great. Okay. Can we use that clip in one of our videos?
Sure.
We get everybody to say generational change, generational change, generational change. Yeah. I think you're right. I think that's great. And I feel like we're seeing it happen in live time. That's what's really cool.
Yeah.
I think the fact that you were able to, I think the fact that you did it like an actress, where you were just, give me a line and just do it.
Yeah.
And the fact that you were just so
she's on
generational change. Boom.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it is.
I would say that comes from it comes from my parents. I literally was raised by brilliant people, and so the ability to think is a part of me. And plug for the arts. Arts helps you to solve problems. And so you literally lobbed a problem at me. How do I answer this question? Boom. And you think for a moment, and you go ahead and share it. And you don't have the fear, right? It's to be able to be creative is to be able to move through fear, past fear, and not let fear stop you. So I think that's kind of what you just got to experience.
Betty, I know we usually close with the question, what does generational change mean to you? But one question just sprung to mind, and I definitely have to ask it. Why, from your observation, because Colorado is a very unique state. It's a blue state, but it's got a it's got a very, no, I know, but it's got a
let her be.
No, may I please?
All right.
It's got a very eclectic mix of culture.
It does.
And so what I think is very interesting is, especially on the conservative right, in many ways, there is sort of this shunning of the arts in this country. From your perspective, why do you think that is such a hot button sticking point for a lot of people? It's like, oh, I don't want to invest any money.
I don't want to pay that. Why is my money going to that? Yeah.
Like, why, from your perspective, why do you think that's such a hot button issue for predominantly people who tend to lean on the very conservative side?
Yes. Yeah.
Well, first, I'll have to just give a shout out to the great state of Colorado, because we are actually, and depending on the year you look, we are either the #1 or the #2 state in the nation for people who actually attend arts events. So Colorado is pretty special, and Colorado is a purple state. We are an interesting mix of both red and blue, and across the board, they all still embrace the arts, despite the fact that most people in Colorado would rather be hiking than anywhere else indoors anyway. So, gonna have to do that. That's very Colorado. What I would say, and I'm going to partially reject the paradigm that you're trying to spin of arts, people being against the arts because they're conservative Republicans. I would say that people love art, period, but some art is upsetting to others, period. And so when you have art that is willing to challenge the social mores, the morals of the time, and some of our traditions, you will have people who say, well, rather than simply rejecting this message, I want to reject all of it. So it goes back to that cancel culture idea, as opposed to saying, well, I can go and choose to see these kind of plays, or I can choose to go and see this type of art. Instead, some people with a louder mic perhaps will say, forget the arts, cancel the arts, we don't need to invest in the arts. But really, I would say that's simply short-sighted, because every culture that is thriving in the world supports the arts. Except ours. So, and even without the country fully supporting the arts, one of the biggest products in our country is the arts. What we export in terms of film and television is still one of the largest industries. So you can like or dislike art all you want, but the bottom line is that art makes money. When you have a theater in a town, you get restaurants, you get shops, you get other boutiques because it draws people. We are an economic driver. And what's sad is that we don't have people grabbing the megaphone to let people know what the facts are. And instead, we get to hear about minor issues that people have rather than the greater good that art does. If everyone knew how kids literally have their lives transformed because they discover that they have a voice. And I don't even mean their singing voice, but they recognize that something in them matters, and it changes the way they move throughout life and the adults that they become. So I would just say that we don't necessarily have a great marketing department to help the world know how valuable and how valid the arts are.
Yeah, I think what you were talking, he was talking more about like public funding for arts. I think that was more like what you were thinking, why people like, especially like conservative, fiscal conservatives have like this mentality of, well, that's, you know, superfluous. That's not that's extracurricular. That's not the key things. And, you know, you saw it you've seen movies about this, like Mr. Holland's Opus, where they had to cut the music program because they're not going to cut English and math. Now, personally, I think we're better off with art than math, but that's just me. Well, you know, whatever.
The problem, the fact that people don't recognize that math and arts, music is math. So when you learn music, that is math. Music is science. So again, I think the problem is that people want to relegate it to one item rather than looking at what it does in the entirety. Everyone in society wants people, human beings who can collaborate well. Everyone wants problem solvers. Everyone wants people who recognize their worth and, more importantly, recognize the worth of others. All of those things happen when you're involved in the arts. Period. So when people are squabbling over other things, you're simply hearing people grab a soundbite that's really easy to promote, because you can say, I'm a fiscal conservative, or I care about finances, which everyone cares about finances. Everyone wants our government to manage their money properly. Everyone pretty much that I know wants the government to balance budgets the way we as individual citizens have to balance our own budgets. Just saying. So I think it just becomes fodder to get some traction in the media, and it doesn't allow for the deeper conversations about what kind of society do we want to be and what does it take to get there.
I've always been intrigued by the arts. I particularly love photography, especially nature photography, and you're in one heck of a state for that. And I have to say that this conversation, I think, has been extremely informative. For those of you who do not, or maybe arriving late,
find the banner.
It is the banner. Betty Hart
And what was the? Well, I don't. Is that that's not the exact title? Is that the exact title?
Canceling cancel culture with compassion.
That's the title on YouTube, but on TED.com, because I was recently 2 weeks ago, I was promoted to TED.com. They've changed. Yeah, so I'm on TED.com/Betty Hart, which is pretty exciting. And last time I checked, over 700,000 people have watched my TED Talk.
Isn't that amazing? Like you just got up there to do that. This isn't really what you do, and you just got up there and put that out there. But I think it really speaks as to how needed that message is right now. I mean, it just is. Like it's very, and you really speak well. You do. I mean, you're a good public speaker. It is. But I think the message is critical.
Well, I think we're going to get you quite a few more views, and anything we can do to help. Your message is beautiful. And it definitely is very needed right now. We can't thank you enough, Betty, for coming on.
I know we kind of talked all over the place with you, but I just, we don't really usually have a plan.
That's what podcasts are supposed to do.
Yeah, I mean, we do our research, like the content, but then we kind of just like let it fly.
Yeah.
I love that.
This was great. And if I don't mind saying, I still think the highlight was your answer to generational change.
It was great.
That was money. Like
it was good.
Yeah.
Well, please subscribe. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't.
Yes.
But I really love talking to you. Thank you so much for coming on. I loved your talk. So guys, check it out. Check it out on TED. Check it out on YouTube. Just go check it out.
It is beautiful, and so are you. And we thank you for coming on, and we look forward to seeing you again soon.
Thank you so much.
So much. Thank you.
Bye, Betty.
Bye.
Well, she was certainly a charmer.
She's so cute.
And
I knew she would be cute. Well, look, I mean, when I watched the talk, I'm telling you, I sat there and I'm like, oh my God, we could be friends. And then I started doing the research and I'm like, oh my God, she's a theater person.
Well, it really, the thing that hits you is when she talks about her father losing his ability to remember. And it's just like, at some point, because everyone acts like, oh yeah, I can do this, I can do that. No, the second you start to lose something that you can't control, believe me, you're going to look back on a lot of things that you've done and say, man, I really wish I could have handled that differently. And that's what it's all about. And that's the difference. And I didn't want to get into the political speak with her too much because you
can't stop yourself. No, you can't control yourself from politics.
But I do think that there was you can be so like
poly speak. I can be what?
Me not wanting to be doing a show with you is what you can do sometimes. So unfortunately, we do live in a type of situation where, Jen has to sort of rub elbows with certain people in this particular area. This is a very Biden blue area in many respects, as Jen likes to say. Yeah. That doesn't mean that change isn't possible. I believe it is. But there are a lot of people that have been in power for a very long time that, let's face it, if we had generational change here in South Florida, they would react the same way they did in Nevada, where all the people that had been in power for a long time, they're not just going to quit. They are going to empty the bank accounts as well.
Oh, they'll set the building on fire on the way out the door. That is exactly
what will happen. And there is this resentment, this desire for, I like things this way and it's not going to change as long as I'm alive.
What's so interesting about it is that there's no there. Like the only thing that these people hang their hat on and what they like is just the identity of the people that are in office.
And let's be honest.
There's no policy. There's no substance.
And let's be honest. The people that have an axe to grind with Jen, they all support Wasserman Schultz. So there's there is a connection there, whether anybody will admit it or not, but there is.
I think it's also just for whatever reason, they're looking out for whatever their political best interests are and longevity, and they have to side with where it's safe.
Correct.
But I do believe that there's a way to do that and maintain honor and integrity, and there's a way to do that where you don't have honor and integrity.
Well, that's like my friend, who is what you would call high up in the food chain, but doesn't treat it as I have to squash other people. My friend ended up getting a challenger who we were not too fond of, but he treated it as, you know what? I have to go out and grind and earn my votes. It's not personal. People think I may not be doing a good enough job. Okay, then it's my responsibility. But then there are a lot of other people who treat it as, how dare you challenge so-and-so?
Yes.
What do you think think you're doing? Don't
Well,
you know how things are done around here?
There's that. And I don't, there's a lot of jealousy. There's a lot of just.
And I think that's where a lot of the canceling comes from.
It's jealousy, and it's sad. And, for the most part, the majority of the people that I've been dealing with this, they're younger than me. They're not, maybe their emotional mindset, their spiritual mindset, I don't know, is not where I'm at. But
no, I think it's
this is kind of, no, I think it's intentional. But the kind of when you're in my mindset where I am, my goal is to find as many people as possible who are on my mission and want to help and sort of move along.
Right.
My goal is not to stymie other people and hurt other people. There's really not a lot of time for that.
No.
And so, no, dealing with the nonsense here and the stuff, I mean, it's frustrating, but it's even worse that it's based on a lie. And it's out of control. And the amount of people that were so willing to jump on that bandwagon and believe it just because someone told them this story. And now I'm forever damned with all of these Democrats because I'm racist Karen.
Well, you actually have done it the right way, which is not to fight fire with fire, because that's what most people in politics end up doing. They end up just slinging mud and thinking that that's the best way to do it. And the way I would equate your situation and what you went through that I think makes the most sense is essentially what happened to Bernie when he ran against Hillary. They found every which way to brand him a misogynist, a racist, a sexist, and it was all BS. But it doesn't matter because, as one of the biggest mass murderers this planet has ever seen once said, however big of the lie, tell it as many times as you have to until people start to believe it.
And then here's the other thing is I do believe that the person telling the lie believes it as well. So even though if you really were forced to reckon with that moment in time, you would have to maybe reckon what really happened. But I do think people convince themselves that that is the story and that is what happened. But it's very unfortunate, and it's really kind of annoying. And I feel like this whole group of gaggle of we call them the mean girls. There's this gaggle of mean girls in Broward that think that they have complete ownership of all things having to do with politics and the Democratic Party. And quite honestly, they could have it because they deserve it. But they're like junior high school. It's like junior high school. There's even the little fighters that they bring out, the little, what do you call them? The pit bulls,
foot soldiers.
They're little foot soldiers that come out and start picking fights it's like junior high school with these girls. And really it's pathetic.
But that's politics in general.
No, I know.
This is the reason why people don't want to be involved in politics, because that is the side of it that it's basically like pissing and crapping in the pool. And that's what people like to do. They want to do that because they thrive on the chaotic element of politics. Whether anyone would admit it or not, they loved Trump because Trump kept things interesting in the most uncomfortable way.
Oh, he was uncomfortable.
But he made it so that everyone was tuning in. Everyone had to know what was going on. And now the people who are the most easily offended by the types of things that are more or less a product of the fact that society is so broken that somebody like Trump can come along and basically say what he's going to say. And instead of the majority of people rejecting it, tens of millions embraced it. This is the greatest thing ever. And people are not recognizing that society is broken. And that's what happens a lot of times with people that live in, gated communities and places like that, because they don't want to know what's going on the outside.
And here's the irony of it. So I live in a gated community. I don't particularly care that I live in a gated community. The only reason I'm here is it was in my school district and it was the right size house and it had the garage I wanted.
It's a metaphor, but it's a metaphor.
I understand that, but that's what I'm saying. And yet then there's this group of girls that think I'm like Karen. And it's so interesting to me because in my mind, I'm so not that. I'm not that.
Your actions will always speak louder than
words. Well, of course. And I have a whole lifetime of actions that are much contrary to what those people think, which is just so interesting.
We'll leave you guys with this point. There was a post that we put out alluding to the fact that Wasserman Schultz has not, and will not support Medicare for all. And there was one particular person who I do know who runs a pretty popular page who doesn't like Jen because she said some things that she didn't agree with when it came to critiquing a couple of heads of the party. And instead of it being about, I don't like her policy, I don't like what she did to somebody, she offended a person, in my opinion, that's unforgivable. And if that means that I have to stick with Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who will never give you health care ever.
But because it doesn't hurt your feelings.
But that is privilege. That is
privilege.
That is privilege.
That is significant.
That is what
it's oozing in privilege.
You have to be privileged to think that it is more important to not have a learning moment and say, well, maybe this person needs to get
instead you just cancel. Are you talking about the Jill Biden thing?
That was one of the things.
Okay,
yes.
So I will continue to mock anybody who has a PhD that demands to be called doctor. I find it pretentious. Yes, I know they're entitled to that. Yes, I know they work for it.
But you have a Juris Doctorate.
I have a doctorate degree.
You're
I have a JD.
You would never think to ask anybody to call you doctor.
No, and nor do my friends who have PhDs because it's pretentious. Now, in a college setting, somebody will refer to you as professor. Obviously, you would sign that on a paper that you're working on, but to expect people in the common realm and in the common public places to refer to you as doctor, to me, is pretentious.
And it's not just that, it's the fact that this country is so undereducated and it desperately needs to be better in that respect. Most people don't even graduate high school. I don't think people really understand how bad it really is. It's not, I'm not putting that up.
No.
But I do think that when people understand that they want to get an education, they want to go to college, they want to learn a trade, they want to do all these things, and then the liberal elites just shove it in their face like, oh, they have 3 degrees and they're this. Right. But most people can't even get a college degree. Even get a GED.
Right. This woman is more, it offends this woman more that I would make a commentary referring to one wanting to be called Dr. Pretentious. That's more offensive to her than children not having health care.
She also doesn't like the fact that you're supporting Julian Assange. So I'm just going to put that out.
Because I support Julian Assange. So and let's talk about, on that note, we got where's our new script? Okay, can you find it? Go to Start. I think it's, wait. Is it in? No, it's not in that. Go into Inbox.
Inbox. And script. Where?
Hold on. There's this little thing here. I'll find it. There's this like gnat thing.
Jen is going to make a updated phone call, which is very important because the first one was just a little
we were
too
testing it out. Okay, so what? For anybody who doesn't know, on Saturday, 1:30 to 7, we're having a free Assange forum, a telethon for the day. There will be different guests, different panels throughout the day.
That's good, Melissa. That's fine.
Yes, it's Esquire. That's what I said to him today. It's like, do I call you doctor? I'm like, no, you call me Esquire. So we're having a free Assange forum. And what the gist is, we're going to talk about different things, different guests throughout the day. But the key issue is we're going to be continually pushing for people to call and leave a message at the Department of Justice. And we have a script. And I'll do it again. Where's my phone?
Here's my phone.
Okay. And I'm going to demonstrate. We're going to leave another message. Okay. So now I can say, all right, now this is, you're like, hi, it's me again.
Yes.
Hi, it's me again.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I can't help it, but I think of Pee Wee Herman when I hear that.
All right, wait. Department of Justice, line 202.
353.
Okay.
1555. And there it came up on your auto dial. So there you go. So this is very important.
This is important. So I'm going to demonstrate.
Department of Justice comment line. Although your opinion is valuable to us, we cannot return calls made to this number. If you would like to contact the Department of Justice, including the Attorney General, please log on to our website.
I need to see it bigger.
www.justice.gov and select one of the options under the
Even though we want to have your opinion, we really don't care.
Please contact your local police or the FBI in your area.
Call the FBI.
If you would like
that's really going to go places.
Regarding civil and constitutional rights.
That's us.
Please press 1.
Okay, so we want to leave a comment.
Please leave your comment regarding civil and constitutional rights.
Record your message at the tone. When you are finished, hang up or press pound for more options.
Hi, my name is Jen Perlman. I'm calling from Broward County, Florida. I'm calling to ask that the United States drop its case against Julian Assange. I'm deeply concerned about the potential ramifications that prosecuting a journalist for exposing American war crimes will have on our civil liberties. Joe Biden promised that he would end Trump's attacks on the press, yet his administration has indicated that it will continue to seek Assange's extradition. The prosecution of Assange creates a dangerous precedent that will prevent journalists from holding our government accountable. Please protect our First Amendment and drop the case against Assange immediately. Thank you for your time. I think that was better.
I think it was much better.
Okay.
And I think it really
that was
drives home
good.
the point.
Yeah. So, John, I think that's the script. I think that's what we're going to go with. I think we should take the full length version and somehow convert it so people can use it as an email if they want to also send emails. Not everybody's going to feel comfortable
No, but
calling.
we'll put that video up on social media. So
of
that
me
way,
doing that.
Yes,
okay.
100%.
Yeah. So yeah, and anybody can obviously do it on their own free time. We're going to put this out there, but we are having a telethon. It's going to raise awareness for Julian Assange.
And when is
And
that
some
telethon
people-
again?
It is Saturday, this coming Saturday, 1:30 to 7. It's going to be a long day. I'm co-hosting it with Katie Halper. It's posted on our Facebook, right?
It's
the
on
event?
Facebook. It's
Okay.
on Instagram.
So guys, check
Twitter.
it out. And anytime you can pop in would be great. It's a whole day of amazing people, ending
Yep.
with Chris Hedges and Margaret Kimberly. And I'm very excited.
And we're going to have obviously a lot of different topics.
Yes.
So to recap, I'm going to do this off memory.
Wait.
See how it goes.
Can you do we have, oh my God,
Yes,
I pulled
well,
up
for
so many
example,
graphics. I don't even know where to look, John.
The 2 p.m. hour is going to feature John Kiriakou, Medea Benjamin, and Kevin Gostola. And the topic of conversation, of course, is going to be the military-industrial complex's hold on the corporate media when it comes to whistleblowers, because they have effectively turned people like Ellsberg, Assange, Snowden, even Reality Winner into these enemies of the state.
Yeah. And instead of, we should be building monuments to these people. Is that also going to talk about just the complete false information that we get here regarding what is going on
That's
overseas?
the whole.
We're not getting accurate information.
That it can be one component of it, but if you let
That's
me
what I'm talking
continue,
about. Okay,
the
sorry.
second hour, which is going to be at 3:00, is going to be about U.S. foreign policy, and that will cover the extent of what is the information that the public is able to get, and of course, what is actually going on. And that particular panel is going to feature Lee Camp, Rania Kalik, and Ron Placone. So that'll be a lot of fun.
It'll be a humorous discussion on how sad that, what does Lee Camp's show say, Redacted Tonight? How we're American journalists reporting on American soil are considered foreign agents.
Yes.
That whole thing. So that's cool. Okay. So that's 3 to 4, right?
Now 4 to 5.
4 to 5
is going to feature a very important panel because it deals with independent media versus corporate media. Now, this is going to cover not just the message that's being conveyed in terms of what the corporate media gives you versus independent media,
but how they're crushing us.
They're not just crushing us, and that is something we'll talk about, because if this goes well, we'll discuss doing potential future. I
hope that
telethons.
You have good questions for all of these hours, since I'm moderating this activity. And
I'll have plenty of good questions.
I want to know what your questions are. Okay, so who's on from 4 to 5?
That will feature real journalist Jordan Chariton, real comedian Kate Willett, and star running back turned political activist, or both, Justin Jackson. And so being able to have that discussion is going to be essential to how we are able to get our message across. And one of the things that must be discussed during that hour is how we are not able to check our egos at the door, because that is a very large problem. Very large problem. A lot of times, as you like to say, and I think you could talk about it now really brief, is you came up with this very good idea of it's not punching up, it's not punching down.
It's punching sideways. And that's something that the left seems to have a problem doing. And that's why we can't get out of our own way. So my producers remind me. So I want to share the screen. We're going to also, this is been put up from the Assange defense team. They are promoting our telethon, but I was letting them see what the website was. That was sort of the problem. So it's shared, but wait, are we?
I got it. Let me do it.
Okay.
So this is going to show.
Oh,
us
here we
exactly who's
go.
coming
There we
on.
go. Okay, so this is at AssangeDefense.org, new event, and they were nice enough to put this together for
Yes.
us. And so this is our group. So then we have from 5 to 6.
Norman Solomon, Marjorie Cohen,
And Shahid Buttar. And what are we talking? And that his name is spelled wrong, John. That his name is not spelled that way. Is that how his last name is spelled?
Which?
Shahid.
Yes, that is.
Is that correct?
It is.
Okay.
It's like butter.
Okay,
But
it is. Okay,
yes.
okay.
But I can't
Sorry,
believe it's not.
sorry. Okay, just wanted to make sure. Okay, so and what is our topic from 5 to 6?
The topic, of course, is going to be about I guess what you would call sort of the evolution of where we have come in terms of whistleblowers in the United States. And I think it goes without saying that we are living in a completely different time from when Daniel Ellsberg released the Pentagon Papers to where we are now. And another thing that was brought up,
I can, but I want to be able to share the website. And I
Okay,
want you
I'll
to
take
put
care.
it. Okay.
I will take care of it.
Okay, go ahead.
So one of the things that does not get talked about enough is there is this, I guess what you would call, what's the best way to say this? There is this belief, and it's been this narrative that has been pushed very hard on the left, or not even the left. It's just been pushed by the neoliberal corporate media that Julian Assange basically works for the Republicans and that he doesn't actually want to help both sides of the cause. He's just going after Hillary Clinton, whereas he could have went after Donald Trump. I don't know. It seemed like Donald Trump had every single thing in his closet aired out when he was running for president, and yet he still won. And when it came to Hillary Clinton, they moved heaven and earth not to allow any information to get out. And they were able to prove beyond a reasonable doubt, as it would be declared in a court of law, and it was, that Bernie Sanders was cheated in the primary against Hillary Clinton. And what was the response from the DNC when WikiLeaks via Julian Assange revealed in court? What was their response? We can just as easily go into a back smoke-filled room and choose our candidate if we choose, and you can't stop us. So as far as I'm concerned, they let the cat out of the bag. They let it know that this is a dog and pony show. Until you take over the system, we will continue to do things as we so choose. Just like you didn't want Kamala Harris as to be the president of the United States. Too bad, we're going to force her down your throat anyway. So that's how this stuff works right now. That doesn't mean it's not going to change. And so having this ability to further the narrative about where freedom of the press actually stands in society today, because a lot has changed since the Pentagon Papers. But what also doesn't get talked about is that Julian Assange actually went after the GOP in power when it was the Bush administration and what they were doing with torture. Who do you think released that information?
Yeah, I think that the point is that Julian Assange, first of all, is not a political figure. He's not even an American citizen. So he has no give a crap whatsoever about our political parties.
There is no legal standing whatsoever to extradite this man to our country.
No, it's interesting to me. I still don't see how he could be tried for a law that is when an American citizen turns against its country when he's not an American citizen, but I digress.
I am going to let you guys know, for those of you who just want to be informed ahead of time, the wonkiest, most intellectual conversation is going to take place from the 5 to 6 o'clock hour. Norman Solomon, Marjorie Cohen, Shahid Buttar, Jen Perlman. It is going to be
I don't think I'm just going to sit back and watch that.
Yeah. Well, it'll be interesting. But that is, if you want to get the meat and potatoes of what's going on from a legal standpoint, from a constitutional standpoint, you're going to get it in from the 5 to 6 o'clock hour. And then finally, from 6 to 7, we are going to have one of the most impressive journalists that we've ever seen.
I'm a little nervous about that.
Along with one of the most amazing guests we've had in recent memory.
And she was just on here last week and we really liked her and we thought she would really complement that last hour really nicely. And so we invited Margaret to come back. So
and it just so happens that these two happen to be very friendly with Dr. Cornel West. And so I like to call him the modern day Martin,
love him.
Which he is.
I love him. But I would like to have him on separately anyway.
Yeah, I can see that. And so essentially the essence of the final conversation is going to be, what is the game plan? What do we do going forward because very often people get a little too wrapped up in the electoral political side of things.
Yeah.
And that is not the only, it is part of the equation. Don't misunderstand. We still need to elect people that are part of the cause and are non-corporate. But there's a lot of things. This bug will not go away.
No, it's so annoying. Just like this little gnat flying around. But you know what? I just really think it's important for people to understand. I have always been unapologetically supportive of Julian Assange. Always. There's never been a point in time when I wasn't 100%. This has been a problem for me for the better part of 10 years. So I honestly don't care that it's controversial. That's irrelevant. It's only controversial because people are politicizing something that isn't political. It's constitutional.
And people take the word of corporate media at face value. And that's a huge mistake.
Yeah.
And it's on both sides. You criticize people who watch Fox News. It's like, but you don't look at MSNBC and CNN in the same lens. It's all the same. It's just that Fox News pulls the mask off a little more so that you can see just how transparently corrupt they are. Whereas on MSNBC and CNN, they try to be a little bit more subtle about it.
Sorry.
They're not. That bug is done once we're off.
I don't. So we're trying to kill a gnat.
Bug.
Gnat. So anyway, so that's going on with Julian Assange. And before we go, I want to do a quick promo for Kite Day. I want to put up the little flyer. We will be having a Kite Day, and it's in Liberia. You're gonna just have to share it. I think I have.
No.
It's
no.
that.
Okay.
That's it. And what it's a community event. It's for kids to come out. They can come out. They can get a free kite. And then there's going to be like tables where people are helping them put them together. And there's lots of open space. And this is an event that is in honor of the memory of a friend of mine's niece who was a victim of gun violence. And this is really what the point of this is it's like promotion of awareness and education. But if you would like to help or contribute, and you live local and you'd like to volunteer, we need help, like putting kites together and checking people in. It's on April 10th, right? Am I reading that right?
Yes.
I'm like going blind, from 12 to 4. And right now it's scheduled. I believe that address 2311 North 23rd is like the PAL League field. And right now that's where it's scheduled.
Correct.
It possibly could get moved. City of Hollywood is jerking them around a little bit. No surprise there. But, we're saying sponsor a kite, $15, Cash App, $ community work. That goes straight to my girl Mo, and anyone who knows is
and we will never promote anything on this channel that isn't going exactly where it needs to go.
And this is someone who is the real deal. She is spending all her time, all her money. She even traded in her car that she loved so that she could get a truck, because they needed a truck for the garden. So like, this is someone where basically everything she does is thinking about how am I going to help the kids and how am I going to help the community. So anyway, I'm on Kim Iverson tomorrow. Okay, well, there you go. That's news to me. Thanks, John.
Last thing we want to mention, very important. It just came out a couple of hours ago. Nina Turner's primary day is August 3rd. So obviously it's not tomorrow. It's going to take some time, but
she has a March 31st deadline for fundraising right now, and we need to put that out there. We need to put the link out there, not necessarily on here, but just attached to this somehow. We need to be promoting that. And of course, we're going to be helping as much as we can. Nina called me yesterday.
Do not use this term lightly, but Nina is a friend, and we want to do everything we can in our capacity to help her.
Yes.
Because if she does get in, it is a real game changer.
It's a game changer. It's a game changer for us personally. It's a game changer in general. It's a big deal.
I've always said, and this is no disrespect to AOC, but Nina's the one.
Nina's the leader.
She is the heir apparent to Bernie's movement.
And so Nina called yesterday, which it never gets old. You know what I mean? Like I see it, her name comes up on caller ID, and I'm like, so Nina called and was asking for, she was telling me that they're done, she was doing call time, which we hate doing. And she's so good. I don't know how she doesn't get in like 20-minute conversations with everybody that she does call time with. But she is really wanting to hit this fundraising deadline hard. So I would encourage people, please reach out to Nina Turner. Volunteer to Phone Bank, donate. And we should have a live stream Phone Bank event. Like after our Assange forum on Friday or Saturday, we're going to basically be full speed ahead, like Team Nina. That's going to be like a big priority for us. So emails will be going out from me to our donors. I cannot stress enough that having someone like Nina Turner in Congress is a complete game changer.
There
are
other people that are running for office. Obviously, Lee Carter running for governor in the state of Virginia. Obviously, there are two great candidates running in New York City that we are big fans of, Diana Morales and, of course, Andrew Yang. again,
No, there's good candidates all over, and yet this is
like the primary ones that
this needs to happen.
that we're focusing on, that we really want to help.
Yeah,
because they've helped Jen, and this is about,
because that's the person who makes things happen.
Of course, and
that's how progress happens.
But again, and this is the thing that I can't stress enough to the movement. Please check your freaking egos at the door. You have to do it, because if you don't do it, we will literally just circle the drain.
We are.
That's all we're going to do.
Well, this is the thing about punching sideways. I put out that post today because apparently I got some crap from a content creator. I got kind of lied about and kind of like, I went like disparaged, kind of like I was, as if there's this group of people that have proprietary ownership about all things Julian Assange, and how dare I have this telethon without including X, Y, and Z, and who am I to do, like, just all this kind of.
There are bigger content creators who are just as big advocates for Julian and would never say any such thing. Once you see how many people we already have, they would think, well, it's a pretty
right, but
big
instead
lineup.
they have to like come and try to knock me down and be
again, and the reason we do not use their names is because there is no point in doing that, because this isn't going to advance the issue.
No, they're on our team for these issues. So it's so counterproductive. That's my point. So my post is that it would be, there's a big difference between muck raking and pot stirring.
Yes.
And so muck raking means you're speaking truth to power. Pot stirring means you're elbowing and punching sideways to people that are on your same team. And that is counterproductive. And so I'm not going to really, address this directly because it's not worth it to me. But yeah, in general, people, if somebody's doing something to help a cause that you supposedly really care about, the only thing that should be coming out of your mouth is, wow, that's really great. And how can I help you? That's it. Otherwise, keep your thoughts to yourself. Nobody owns Julian Assange's issue. Nobody owns our First Amendment. We can all care about it equally.
We all have to be, all have to have this mentality. This isn't about jealousy. Listen, there's people who are content creators who are total divas and total, showmen, show women, whatever you want to call them. If they are non-corporate and fighting for the cause, then that's all that matters. That's all that should matter. Some people are simply going to make it about them, but as long as it is about the cause,
and that's it.
That's it.
But these people want credit. They want recognition. Yes. They want to be patted on the head. Oh, yes, you're such a good warrior for the First Amendment and all that. And that very well might be true, but you don't have to knock me down or try to put me down. How does that help? Other than just being critical for no reason. And then people do it under the guise of, oh, they're really speaking the truth. They're really calling people out. Yeah, sideways. Go up. Look up. You know what I mean? I don't need to be called out. All right? I'm just a person trying to do what I can to help a cause that matters to me.
You should go after the guy that...
Go up.
What was the guy's name that Katie, that you and Katie got called out? I mean, granted...
Who was it?
Listen... You want to know who you can punch, if you will? There is one group of people who, in my opinion, are more insufferable than MAGA. And that is the K-Hive.
Oh, the K-Hive.
They are
the K-Hive hates me.
Absolute worst. They are the worst.
They hate me.
And their heads are literally exploding over this. They're exploding. If you think it's bad now, seriously, get your artillery ready, because it is going to get really ugly on Saturday. They are going to swarm, as they do. They're going to get in on the chats. They are going to spam. They're going to get nasty. Those are the people who are impeding progress.
Oh, yeah.
They are the problem.
Yeah.
And I think we can all universally agree that that is what we can unify around. It's not about whether you're getting credit or not. Are you getting the message out there?
What is Melissa asking? I'm not sure what that is.
Melissa, NFT? I'm not sure what that means.
NFT is
but let's really make a collective effort to recognize that we have to be working together.
Yes.
And there are voices that lean libertarian in many respects that we do need. Kim Iverson is one of them. Tim Pool is another one.
Yeah, I don't agree with everybody on everything. We don't have to all agree.
Content creators like Steven Crowder? No, we don't need to do anything with them.
And let me be very clear. I would never suggest deplatforming anybody. We're just talking about people that we want to work
I just
with
wouldn't
or want
associate with
well,
them.
Right.
Because
Well, I don't want to
people
talk
like
to that.
because people like Steven Crowder have only one interest and only one, and that is making money off of being a YouTube personality. He is no different than Ben Shapiro. The only difference is that he wants to be in the lane of the worst type of people that we have in our society.
Yeah.
The people who literally punch down all day, every day.
Yeah. I mean, look, I would never watch Alex Jones because I just find him to be a buffoon, but I don't support him being deplatformed.
No.
So everybody should have a platform. Let it be clear. But the people that I want to engage with might not agree with me on a lot of things. I like Tim Pool. I thought they were really nice. And funny enough, Kim Iverson was recently on Tim Pool and I watched her piece on it. And I watched when she said, I stayed with them. They were sort of like, if you didn't know they were a little to the right, you would think it was like a hippie commune. And I'm thinking, yes. Like they were so hospitable. They couldn't do and they were.
And you guys will talk about this.
Yeah.
Tomorrow night.
Tim is great. But anyway, I think it's important. A free Assange and not NFT, sell it on open. What's NFT though? Do you know what that is?
I really don't.
Why do we not know what this
You
is? On
stumped me.
OpenSea and someone's going to
That's
say,
true.
Free I
And
see.
again, Kim Iverson, to her credit, when you can put a pretty face on something and really be knowledgeable about the primary issues that we have to be concerning ourselves with,
Are you calling
it
Kim
helps.
pretty?
She is pretty.
She is pretty.
And so by having that ability to attract, and look, I have no doubt that her percentage, it's probably 90% men. And so when that ultimately happens, you can actually teach people about a lot of important things because the aesthetic is pleasing. And when she's giving the message that perhaps others are giving that no one's listening to, it helps. You're not going to agree with everything that she says, but she is part of the movement.
She's
in a
part
good
of
way.
the progress. She's
100%.
educating people and giving information. And again, I have no interest in knocking down other people and content creators. I have no interest in fighting these. It's childish. This is so childish to me. I'm just, and I used to say middle-aged, and now I kind of feel like I'm beyond that. And so now, but I'm not old, so I kind of don't know how to talk. So I say I'm just pushing 50. But I'm just a person who now has a platform to then say something about something that matters to me. I would have hosted a telethon about Julian Assange, 8 years ago, except for I didn't have a platform. So what was I going to do with that? But years ago, I did send my email to his barrister, one of his barristers, and offer free legal help stateside. Do they need research? What can I do for you? The Julian Assange thing has been on my mind for the better part of 10 years, regularly. My husband can attest to this. I have told him repeatedly, if Julian Assange gets extradited, then I'm going to Virginia. This is not new. I know people think they're proprietary about it, but they're not. If somebody comes to me and says, hey, I'm planning this action or I'm planning this issue or I've just forced the vote, I'm like, yeah, great. Let's do it. I'll support, I'll promote, I'll do that. I might not take it up as a primary cause for me, but I'm going to support what everybody's doing to help. Yeah. And so I think that we need more of that. That's what I'm saying. On
that note, we're always grateful that you guys showed up. Remember to share everywhere, like on YouTube, subscribe on YouTube. We've got a lot of great videos, so we need people to comment, watch the ads, even consider becoming a Patreon.
We've gotten a few Patreons. They're Patreons.
You have some new ones?
Well, what I was going to say is I don't think we have enough yet to do the scroll. I think that maybe on Monday we can do that. Or John, I don't know if you want to do, how often you want to do the thing. I think we need to wait for there to be a few and then put it up. It's not something we don't need to do one person every,
No, I agree.
Week. So
non-fungible token. It's a yeah. Here
see,
we
this
go.
is what she's saying here.
Yeah. Okay. So everybody's getting into the cryptocurrency. Well, look, the devaluing of the dollar is definitely a real thing. There was some guy who actually went on Jimmy Dore's show. I forgot his name, but he's saying that the value of crypto, particularly Bitcoin, is going to get to 220,000 a share. It's look. I mean, is it possible? Yeah, of course. Why wouldn't it be? And it's not easy to get into, but at the same time,
I know nothing about any of that. Well, and you know what? Here's the thing. I don't need to. I have, at my age and where I am and how I like to live, there is what I call this finite space. And with new information, out goes some old information. It just does. All right. Middle-aged pothead. This is what happens. So the point is, there are certain things that I recognize I don't need to know. And so I truly don't feel the need to spend brain energy. You know, like to me, logarithm is the key thing. I never understood it, never will. The point spread, never going to understand that. It's been shown to me in diagrams. It's never going to make sense. And I'm okay with that. And what you're talking about, this Bitcoin thing, that is in that category for me. Is I have zero interest, will never understand it. And I'm okay with that.
I'm going to learn it. On that note, we'll see you guys real soon, and you better
be my piece because
you better show up on Saturday.
Yeah, everybody check in on Saturday at some point.
Big day. So thank you all as always. Remember, YouTube, subscribe, share, like, comment, do it all.
And soon, if Peter gets it together, we could have a website where people can get merch and have links to things like Nina's page. Like this is what we need. We need to work on our website.
We're working on our website.
Speaking of which, if anybody out there wants to help us out gratis, we'd really appreciate it because
we
have no revenue stream.
Not much. Very little. But that's what happens when our channels get suppressed. And I'll leave you with this. If Saturday's live stream telethon goes very well,
don't do it.
There could be future opportunities. We'll see what happens. Adios, mi amigos.
I wonder if anybody wants to just see me sitting here for 6.5 hours.
Probably not.